When I was younger, my mom always told me that there were two types of people who learned. One was listening to someone and saying that the stove is hot, so don't put your hand on it. And the other was the little child who did put their hand on the stove and got burned. So for the longest of time, I thought I was the child that didn't put their hand on the stove because I was a good girl and I listened to my mom. But, as you get older, you want to experience things, and I feel like I'm still not, in a way, touching the stove. So this has always kind of been in the back of my mind for like the past couple years now, just thinking, well, maybe I kind of want to go near the stove and feel the heat coming off and being like, okay, maybe I should back off because it's actually really hot and probably shouldn't touch it, or just kind of put my finger on it and be like, oh, okay, it's hot. Maybe I shouldn't put my hand on it. Yeah, so I've always kind of been like, kind of getting close to the stove and then be like, it's too hot, or like actually just like kind of touching it, or just listening to my mom and not putting my hand on the stove. But yeah, I'm in high school right now and I'm seeing kind of different people interact in like experiences that I usually don't, which I probably wouldn't put myself into. For example, sailing. The sailing immersion, I would get seasick. And and I would be scared that I would mess up or something. But I've never tried it before. And then I saw, the kids on the immersion, trying it for the first time, some have already done it, and just kind of like taking the risk. I've thought I was a risky person, but I guess really I'm not. But I guess that's just kind of something that your parents kind of tell you not to do things because maybe they had a bad experience, or they don't want you to have a bad experience because they've heard it's bad, so they just are trying to protect you not from getting burned. And especially your mom, who loves you more than anything on this planet, who just doesn't want to see you get hurt. So that's something I've been contemplating with, and when I've been taking this class, I've been thinking about it more and more often, and it's just been in the back of my mind, and it's kind of coming up from the front of my mind, and it's playing with me. Um, yeah, so the sailing guys, some of them probably, I don't know their experience, but maybe some of them actually did like get burned, or like felt it was too hot and decided to back off, or just put their finger on the stove and were like, oh hey, it's hot, maybe I shouldn't do this. Or maybe some people like somehow got around the stove and then have to get burned. They were able to kind of move with their surroundings and kind of adapt to it. I don't like, yeah. My sister went off to college her my sophomore year, and she stayed in a dorm for a little bit. She went to University of Dayton. Yeah, that's not too far from where we live. It's like 15 minutes. She stayed at the dorm for her first semester, and wow, and she didn't like it. She had a rough time. She said her roommate was always bringing in friends. There wasn't much options to eat because she was a vegetarian, and so she would complain about that. And she was home almost every weekend, and it was just like, oh, I thought you were at the dorm. She's like, oh no, I'm here. So she came back her second semester of her freshman year, and clearly she's doing much better. I mean, she hasn't lost so much weight, and she isn't like freaking out. But I guess for her, she kind of got burned on the stove, so she wasn't able to kind of move around it. But now, I'm looking. It's my junior year of high school now. I'm looking at colleges, and my parents want me to apply locally. Kind of like University of Dayton or like Wright State, so I can stay close and I guess not get burned because she did, or maybe my parents did when they were in college. But I don't really know that experience. But with my sister, it's different because I'm closer to her, and I can kind of actually tell when she's getting burned. And I feel like she wasn't able to adapt to her surroundings, so she wasn't able to move around the stove. She just kept getting closer and closer until she got burned. And then luckily, she came back and wasn't like severe, like damaged or anything, so we saved her from that. Well, my parents did. I didn't really save her from that. But now it's my time coming up, and I've been looking at the colleges that are like, they're still in Ohio, but they would require me not to commute, and that's been kind of freaking my parents out. So it's kind of not me getting the full stove thrown at me. It's more like my parents have to deal with this fact that maybe I'm not gonna go in there and I'm not gonna get burned, or maybe I will, but how are we gonna save her if she's so far away? And they're freaking out more than I am, and it kind of scares me, but at the same time, I've never been that person who's actually been able to move around the stove because I've never really gotten the opportunity to move around the stove, and just kind of feel like maybe I should try that. Maybe I should do something like that because, as long as I don't get too badly burned, right? So I guess it's more experience versus listening, kind of learning that kind of happens. And that is something that's been kind of in the back of my mind. There's some people who can learn from experience, and some people who can just learn by listening or reading it in a book. But I feel like I'm more of a person who has to read it first and then maybe experience it. And then if it's too bad, some people just are able to move around it or adapt to it and somehow come out better from it. So it's kind of a internal battle for me, but not so much for, kids who have had that experience, or, who just don't want to go through that experience. So they're just like, I'm going to listen to my mom and not put my hand on the stove. I guess that's what kind of, well, not saying that life is a stove, but I guess that's what kind of how things happen. You either get burned or you don't, or you're able to move past that burning situation, that really hot stove, and just kind of move out of it and somehow see that maybe this isn't so bad.